The Pittsburgh Steelers enter year 3 of Matt Canada, and it's starting to sound as if maybe they're taking a little bit of control back. Maybe that ice is thinner than we imagine. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, we are talking about a quote from Matt Canada during Steelers minicamp that stuck out so strongly. Why? Because I think he's starting to lose a grip, or at least the Steelers are taking away from what he's able to do with this offense. Let me read this to you. Quote, I think we've got a plan. There's an identity that's coming from an organizational plan, right? It's not like I'm coming in here saying what it is. There's a plan for Mr. Rooney to coach Tomlin. And so obviously when I say we're going to run the ball, it doesn't mean we're going to run it every play and our quarterback, you win, your quarterback has to make plays. You're exactly right in this league. The quarterbacks make the plays to win the game at those key moments. We have great faith in Kenny, Mitch, and Mason to do that. But the prior question, as I answered it, was just saying we do have an identity. We're going to be a physical team, and if you stop the run, then we obviously have to take advantage of that with play action passes, misdirection passes, passes down the field, and that's when Kenny's got to make those throws at those times when it's called upon. The quote before that he is referring to is about the team's identity and how they built up an identity running the football in those final 9 games of the season last year. This is the quote. I think our identity was pretty clear the last 9 games. We were running the football really well. We were physical. You saw who we drafted, who we acquired, and I don't think there's any questions of what our identity is going to be. I think we want to run the football. We want to be physical. We want to be a good team that throws the ball down the field and takes advantage of what the defense gives us. So I think our identity is well known and will stay to where it's at. For those of you who do not know about Matt Canada's journey, he did not come from teams where you knew how well their running backs were. He came from teams that turned Nate Peterman into stars, into NFL players, and still having an opportunity in this league to this day. He comes from those very well-designed passing plays. Matt Canada is a quarterback-loving coach. That's why he came to Pittsburgh as a quarterbacks coach. That's why he was promoted to offensive coordinator from quarterbacks coach. Matt Canada is not somebody that you sit around talking about how good he is at developing a run game. You want to know who he is? The Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think they've hit a point where they've had enough with him trying to change the narrative in Pittsburgh. I think they've had enough of saying your passing plays are not working. Your offensive game plan is not working. Remember last season when we went 9 games and the Pittsburgh Steelers continuously talked week after week after week about how they need to find an identity. They do not have an identity and they're trying desperately to connect and find one. And then they went into the bye week. Everybody believed that Matt Canada's job was on the line. This was the end of it. Matt Canada would have been gone after the bye week. Mike Tomlin said, no changes are going to be made. And then they came back. And when they came back, they suddenly had an identity. They all sat down. There were meetings. People talked about, well, I don't know. But what it sounded like was that people took accountability, that blame was placed on certain directions, and that blame needed to be accounted for. That people just looked at themselves and said, okay, if we're going to win, this is what we need to do. There was speculation across the board on whether or not Mike Sullivan suddenly started taking over play calls for Matt Canada, or if the team took his power away. And to believe it or not, I would have said, no, Matt Canada still has all the power in the world, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are not changing anything. They're just naive, and they do not see that a change needs to be made. And everybody who's listened to this podcast long enough knows that, well, I'm not a guy who's a huge supporter of what Matt Canada has done. I do not believe that he is necessarily the best fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers as an offensive coordinator. And I believe that there are better options and that a move probably should have been made. That being said, I don't get paid to make those decisions. I just get paid to talk about what those decisions are. But it sounds as if the Pittsburgh Steelers looked at that decision, possibly took that bye week, possibly went into a week off and plenty of meetings with players and coaches and really the entire team and sat down and said, look it, Matt Canada, you no longer are able to do what we are not asking you to do. You no longer have the control to take over this offense and design it in your vision. Instead, we will stick to what the Pittsburgh Steelers do best, what the NFL has known the Pittsburgh Steelers to do for their entire existence, and that is to run the football. And we will win doing so. And they did. They put Kenny Pickett in those big moments. They didn't put too much pressure on a rookie quarterback until the end of about 4 games, but I think that Kenny was designed to win in those moments. Instead, they took as much pressure off of the passing game as possible, as much pressure off of Matt Canada as possible, and said, run the football. And it appears they're ready to do it again this year because it doesn't sound, and those quotes from Matt Canada do not sound from or like he has total control of this offense, nor does he want to be a running team. I believe that he sees that the NFL is a changing game, that in today's NFL, guys like Patrick Mahomes and Joey Burrow keep coaches' careers alive because if they succeed, why would you get rid of a coach? In Pittsburgh, if Kenny Pickett has a phenomenal second season, there is zero questions on whether or not Matt Canada stays or goes. He stays. Zero questions asked. If Kenny Pickett has an okay season and the Steelers offense does well, but most of the well is on the ground, there's questions on whether or not Matt Canada stays or goes. If the Steelers offense does okay, and then Kenny Pickett does okay in year 2, I would say that the chances of Matt Canada sticking around another year are very thin. And I think he knows that too. I think that he sees that the light at the end of the tunnel is getting closer and that the Pittsburgh Steelers ice is getting thinner and that he needs to have a breakout season as an offensive coordinator. I think all the excuses are dried up. This team has done everything in its power to secure Matt Canada with an offense that he could win with. It is on Matt Canada and to assure themselves that they did not just build a team. And this goes both ways because it's not just Matt Canada saying, oh, yeah, I don't really have total control of the offense and us talking about that. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers assuring themselves that they didn't just build a team to go on a run with for nothing. They are assuring themselves that all the pieces to the puzzle that they just put in place, a new offensive line, a franchise left tackle in the first round, a new defense, a jacked up running game, a quarterback that they invested a first round pick in a year ago, a veteran wide receiver, and a big run heavy tight end who could also be a red zone threat. They secured all the missing pieces to their game plan, and they are now looking at the entire situation and saying, we will not let our offensive coordinator be the reason that we do not succeed. It is a strange situation in Pittsburgh right now. And again, this is all just my thoughts off of those quotes. It is all my thoughts off of a press conference that I observed. My thoughts are that the Pittsburgh Steelers are being very cautious with Matt Canada in this offense because they see that they can succeed, but they aren't 100% sold on whether or not Matt Canada is capable of handling that and succeeding himself. They're going to do what they do best, and that is to run the football and be physical. That is who the Pittsburgh Steelers are. Meanwhile, Matt Canada's sitting around knowing that if things don't work out, this ice is going to break. And he's hoping that Kenny Pickett turns into something special because if he does, it gives the Steelers a lot less of a reason to get rid of him. But it doesn't seem like this is 100% his offense anymore. And I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but it's the current situation that I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are in.